I'm Danny Brown, and you're listening to Artifacts, a storytelling podcast about technology, internet culture, media, and the feelings we still attach to them. Because sometimes the objects fade, but the feeling doesn't. There used to be a wonderful feeling of not knowing what you were about to find. You'd walk into a video rental store looking for one film and leave with something completely different. You'd head into a record store intending to buy the latest album from your favourite band and walk out with one you'd never even heard of. You'd open your web browser to check one website and somehow find yourself 3 hours later reading about Roman roads, deep-sea creatures, or the history of breakfast cereal. No one suggested it, and no recommendation engine nudged you in that direction. You simply found it. Discovery wasn't something that happened to you. It was something you stumbled into. Before recommendations, there were shelves, rows and rows of them. Video rental stores, libraries, bookshops, record stores, and more. You didn't search, you wandered, sometimes with a purpose, but often without one. And there was something oddly comforting about moving along a shelf and letting your eyes settle on whatever happened to catch them. A film because the cover looked interesting. A book because the title made you curious. An album because you'd never heard of the band, but the artwork made you stop and take a closer look. Browsing rewarded curiosity. There was no fastest route, no shortcut, just the quiet excitement of wondering what might be around the next corner. When the internet arrived, it felt surprisingly familiar. We didn't just search, we explored. Yahoo wasn't simply somewhere to type a question, it was a directory. Real people had organised websites into categories: arts, science, sports, travel, computers. One click led to another, then another, and then another. And before long, you'd completely forgotten where you started. The early web felt less like a destination and more like wandering through a neighbourhood where every door was open. Some websites were polished, while others looked like they'd been built in an afternoon, with flashing GIFs, tiled backgrounds, and animated under-construction signs. But it didn't matter, because behind every page was someone excited enough to share what they loved, and you could feel that enthusiasm. Some of the best discoveries happened completely by accident. You rented the wrong film because the box beside it looked more interesting. You found a new offer because the book you wanted was out of stock. Or you clicked an unfamiliar website simply because the name made you smile. And I remember one of these moments myself. I was browsing in my local HMV one afternoon when a song I'd never heard before came over the store speakers. The song was called Wake Up, the band Arcade Fire, and I stopped browsing and just listened. Not because someone had recommended them, not because I'd read a glowing review, but because they simply happened to be playing while I was there. So I bought the album, and it's still one of my favourites today. And it reminds me how the discoveries we remember the most begin with a complete accident. We've become remarkably good at finding exactly what we're looking for. Spotify usually knows what song I'll probably enjoy next. Netflix gets surprisingly close with what I'd like to watch. YouTube introduces me to creators I'd never have found otherwise. And there's genuine value in all of that, for sure. But recommendations begin with what we already know. Browsing began with what we didn't. It invited curiosity. It left room for chance, for surprises, for the unexpected. The goal wasn't simply to find something, it was to discover something. Maybe the artifact isn't the video rental store, or the record shop, or the Yahoo directory. Maybe the real artifact is browsing itself, taking your time, following your curiosity wherever it happens to lead, allowing yourself to be surprised. Technology has become really good at helping us find exactly what we want, but in becoming so good at predicting our next click, it leaves a little less room for happy accidents, for wandering, for getting pleasantly lost. Perhaps that's why we still remember wandering through video rental stores, browsing library shelves, getting lost on the early internet, or hearing a song in HMV that became part of the soundtrack of our lives. Not because these experiences were more efficient, far from it, but because every shelf, every page, every click held a possibility of finding something we'd never expected. Looking back, perhaps the greatest discoveries weren't the ones we searched for. Instead, they were the ones waiting on a shelf until we happened to walk by. Because sometimes the objects fade, but the feeling doesn't. I'm Danny Brown, and this is Artifacts. Thanks for spending some time with Artifacts. If this episode reminded you of a memory, a feeling, or a piece of the internet you thought had disappeared, you can find more episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to help preserve the archive, visit the website for ways to support the show. Until next time, take care of the things that matter to you, even the small ones.